Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey, what's going on, Run Try Bike family? This is Om Gandhi, co-owner of Run Try Bike, and I think we're on our 53rd. I think we're number 53. Fortunately, Jason had a stale peep accident thanks to Adina, and he's not going to make it. No, I'm just kidding, but I wanted to give a shout out to Adina for sending me this refocus pen. I don't know if you can see it, but it says progress, not perfection. It's one of the things I love about this community, how we all support each other, and Adina is one of the most positive people I know, and we're super stoked that, she sent this to us, and can't wait to see Jason's reaction to the stale peep. But yeah, I've just invited Shawn onto the show. Shawn Eckert is going to be joining us. You know how we roll. We always have a thing or another with so he's invited. So we always have a thing or another when it comes to like meta, especially getting people on the show. So just hang tight for a little bit, but all right, let's see. He is unable to join. Let me see what I could do here. All right. So we always have to start with some technical difficulties, but while we're waiting for Shawn to get on the show, I'll tell you what happened with Adina. There's Shawn. Okay, so Shawn, you have to go to the plus with the video camera on the bottom right, and you can request to join. That should be the other way of getting you on. So let's see if that works. Okay. All right. So yeah, so bottom right there's a camera. Bottom right there's a video camera symbol next to the question mark with the plus. You can request to join by clicking on that. There you go. Yeah, we got it. We got it. He's going to be on pretty shortly here. Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
We've done this show for a year, and it's like yearly tradition to have different it's two things. I'm using like race mugs and stuff as a camera stand right now, and the other thing is like just having technical issues with Meta. It's like either me, Jason, or one of the guests. So don't worry about it, man. It's just a fireside chat tradition. But Shawn, we're super excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us and taking the time.
Have me on, man. I'm super stoked. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who don't know, Shawn Eckert is an ultra runner. He has an amazing story. He's a 100-mile finisher. He's all kinds of things. Like I'm just gonna let him get into it. But I think a good place to start probably with this is just tell the audience a little bit about who you are, man.
Like a little bit just about my story, or just like like what exactly?
So just like a quick introduction. We can kind of get into the story afterward.
All right, so I'm just like husband. I have a 15-year-old son. I started running in 2020. I used to be severely overweight. I used to be 446 pounds. Had an addiction to alcohol and drugs. So this is running kind of changed my life. So definitely, that's pretty much a little bit about who I am, like how everything kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you ended with running saved my life and changed my life, because I think both of those phrases are things that we commonly hear, especially in like ultra running and people who take on running, especially when they've dealt with something like an addiction or something of that sort. And, I want to dive kind of right into that because it's such an integral part of your story. But before we jump on, I could tell we're both trying to shake the nerves out a little bit. So I've got a icebreaker question for you, and this will determine if I drop this chat right now or Jason jumps on and joins later because you'll either be Team Ohm or Team Jason. All right. Are you ready for the question?
Yeah, let me see it.
All right. All right. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're Team Ohm all the way, man. I'm telling you, Jason is like 0 for 10 in the last 10. Or no, Jen on the last episode was pineapple on pizza, but whatever. Like we've got the nice. You're on Team O, man. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that sweet with the savories where it's at.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, throwing on some spice on it as well, just like jalapenos and like pineapple.
Yeah,
It's
most
it's not
definitely.
just to reiterate, guys, it's not just about the sweet. It's about the sweet and savory, like Shawn is saying. Uh, but yeah, man, like going back to your story, talk a little bit about, you know, like addiction and, how it started and where you were um, during that time in your life and sort of how that eventually led to running.
Uh, well, the addiction started like when I was young actually. I used to do drugs when I was like real young, like 14, 15. Uh, then I got like into like heavily drugs. Like I was like super depressed, so like I did drugs to kind of like cope with all that kind of stuff. Like just in my life, like I had severe panic disorder and just like I had a rough life. Like I was homeless when I was real little. It was just there was a lot of things that was happening to me during that time of life. So I would just kind of use the drugs as like a coping like mechanism. And I ended up actually overdosing when I was 19. Um, and that's when everything started kind of changing. I ended up stopped doing drugs at that point. But then what happened was I ended up replacing drugs with alcohol. And then drinking just didn't give me the same effect as drugs. So I had to drink a lot. So I thought if I drank more, it'd give me the same effect, but it never did. So I just became like a binge drinker. Like I would drink all the time, like big amounts. Uh, in my, like 20, through my 20s, stuff like that. And then I ended up like, getting in tons of trouble all the time, getting arrested for like fighting and just, being like an idiot pretty much. But I ended up meeting my wife in my 20s, and then we ended up having a kid. And then I told myself, I was like, look, I need to not drink. I don't want him to see me like this. So I like gave up cigarettes. And during this time, they put me on like I got on medication for like this, like from having the overdose. It put I got like severe panic disorder, like really bad, where I would just like black out. So the medicine actually made me gain like a ton of weight. So I ended up blowing up to like 446 pounds. I was like huge. I wore like a 5X shirt. I wore a 54 size pants. So it was pretty rough. But then when I had my son, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give up cigarettes. I'm gonna give up drinking because that was my thing. But the drinking was really hard. It took me a while to kind of like I would stop for a week and then drink and then stop for a little bit longer and then drink again. And this went on for years, like real long time. And then my son, we ended up moving from Baltimore to Florida, and my son was like almost 3. And then when I moved here, I like stopped taking my medication. I was like, I'm not gonna take this medicine anymore. I'm gonna just try to like get my mind right and start new. And I still was been drinking and stuff, but got off my medication. So I started like feeling better, losing a little bit of weight, but not very much. And then it started happening a little bit more. Like I started having bigger gaps of not drinking. Like months would go by, and then eventually a year would go by, and then I would mess up, and then I'd keep doing this cycle, and then eventually, like 6 years ago, it just stopped. Like I just stopped doing it. Like it was like, okay, I'm not gonna drink anymore, and just like really tried my hardest, and it seemed to work. Ended up slipping up. I drank once, like it's been a year now, so back to another year of sober. But it's just drinking is a very hard thing because it's like such a social activity. But the 6 years was good. I'm restarting at year one again, so another year sober, and I'll take it. But I was during this time I was like on this weight loss journey, and started really concentrate on like my health, my nutrition. I ended up going plant-based like for the past 6 years. Ended up dropping over 200 pounds. But I ended up finding ultra running in 2020 when COVID first hit. The gyms were closed, and I was telling myself, I was like, oh, I don't want to lose my results. I need to do something. And my son was doing cross country at the time. So I was like, oh, I'll run with you a little bit. So we ended up, running around, kind of doing that stuff. And I did like a couple of 5Ks, where I'd walk and I'd kind of run, and I'd kind of just be with him. And then I ended up doing some turkey trots, like holiday runs and stuff like that. And then he ended up not doing cross country anymore. And I was like, okay, I'll just kind of run. It was 2020. And I'll just go outside and kind of walk and run. And then it started not feeling so bad. Like I was like, oh, I can catch my breath. Like I'm not really I'm not running. And then because I would run really fast and then be out of breath. And I was like, oh, and I'll be watching YouTube. I'm like, okay, I need to maybe find a pace, because I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll just try to go a little bit slower. And it ended up feeling pretty good. And I'll do half a mile, and then it turned into a mile, and then it started gradually picking up. And then I just started posting on Instagram. I was like, okay, this feels pretty good. By this time, it's 2021, coming up on 2021. And I was like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm posting stuff. And they're like, dude, running pretty good. I was like, yeah. They're like, hey, why don't you try a marathon? I was like, okay, cool. I'll try one. And I did the Clearwater. It was marathon. It was I think it was 2021, the beginning. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I kept running that and felt fine. I was like, this is nice. And I kept running during this time and posting. And people were like, dude, you're running way past that. That's past the marathon. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I was like, don't everyone run like this? Because I just assumed, because I wasn't, my mind, the way I thought of stuff, I thought if I wasn't running a 9-minute pace or 8-minute pace, or my son and them, they were running 5-minute paces during cross country, I just assumed that wasn't a big deal, because I was running so slow. I was running 16-minute pace at first, and 15-minute pace, and then even later in the year I was running maybe 11-minute pace, but for a very long time. But I assumed everyone did that, just because I was so ignorant to running. I just didn't know. And people were like, no, dude, you're running ultras all the time. And I was running back-to-back 30 milers every day. I'd run 30, 40 miles, and I'd get 1 o'clock in the morning so I can hang out with the family, so I can get 40 miles in, doing a 13, 14-minute pace. And people were like, dude, that's crazy. What are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I thought this was normal. And that's how it started. It was kind of weird.
Designed for running adventures on a variety of surfaces, the Catula Exospikes footwear traction are at home on ice and snow, as well as on dry, rocky ground. 12 ultra-durable tungsten carbide spikes provide an impressive amount of grip when you need it, and stand up to rocks and other abrasive trail features when you don't. Exospikes will inspire you to follow the trail less traveled, even when it's covered in ice. For more information, visit catula.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of time on your feet, and also just and also just I love the fact that you bring up that you didn't really know what was going on, and you just kind of kept increasing the distance. Sometimes sometimes that's the best way to go about it, because really makes you think about how perspective is everything, right? We used to think maybe at one point you thought a 5K was really tough or a really long way to go because you started with a half a mile, and then next thing you know, you're doing a half marathon, you're doing a marathon, and then you just keep increasing the distance, and then you're like, what is this ultra label? What is this ultra marathon thing? So did that when you found out that that was an ultra marathon, did that change your methodology of training at all, or your perspective at all, or did you just keep going about the way you were going about it?
I just stayed the same, to be honest. Yeah, I just stayed the same because I started just like YouTubing because I didn't even know. I started YouTubing it and started seeing it, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I mean, I didn't expect to run like I never expected to like win an ultra or do anything like that. I just was like, wow, man, this is crazy. I'm just gonna stay doing what I was doing. So I was also like doing my running, and then I was also after COVID lifted, I do CrossFit like 3 days a week, like strength training, and I was just including everything with it, you know.
Yeah. Where did strength training come in for you? And just for our beginner audience, like one of the things we always ask when we're talking to runners on the show is like, where strength training fits into the regime and like what it means to you and why it's important. So talk a little bit about strength training, because I've seen some of your videos on Instagram, and you're doing a lot of lifting, which is really what runners should be doing, in my opinion. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, when I first started like CrossFit or HIIT style workout, I remember being like so big that I couldn't even like squat to like a box, like with my body weight. So like when I started doing that, my legs started getting stronger. It just felt good. That was before I even started running. So after I found running, I still wanted to incorporate the strength training with it, just because the fact of I felt like time on foot felt easier, my legs felt stronger, upper body just felt lighter, like when I would just be out there just moving my arms. So it definitely helps just overall, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I strength train a lot of hours in the week as well, and I think that it's just made me just feel really good out there and just be able to put in more time on my feet, and especially like on the trails, on uneven terrain, even just on like hard pavement, because that's like no joke either, especially when you go that many miles. So yeah, it's super cool to hear and see that you're doing like that strength training and you're doing CrossFit as well, because I've seen a lot of CrossFit runners do really well in ultras as well, and just really look strong out there. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, since you kind of talked about doing a 40 miler, starting at like 1 a.m. And this was like sometime around 2021. When did you kind of get the idea or the sense that you wanted to go run 100 miles?
After I heard about it, pretty much, yeah. It's because of my addictive personality. I was like, oh wow, like I think running, it's funny to say, because it's like with other stuff, like I've never really been like good at anything in particular. Like in running, I feel like I know I'm not like the best, but I'm good to myself. Like, and it's cool like to see like milestones. Like it's like, oh, I couldn't run like 800 meters before when I was really heavy, and then oh, I can run a mile. And each time would be something new. I'm like, oh wow, this is a cool new goal. Every time I would hit it, it was like something like, to me, it was like spectacular. I was like, whoa, I ran 3 miles. This is like crazy. And then the next week, oh wow, I ran 4 miles. Like every time it was like something new. I was like this. So it became like, wow. After I ran the marathon, I was like, oh, there's 100. Like that's a thing. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna run it. And that year, I was like, I'm signing up. So I actually signed up for the Daytona 100. That was the first one I ever did in 2021. Yeah. So I did it like I started running 2020 and figured out about a marathon in 2021. Then I figured out about the 100, and I just was like, I jumped right into it.
And so one of the things I saw on your story, and we talked about this in the green room, was that the 100 miler got canceled. Was that the Daytona 100, or was that another 100?
Another race, yeah. There was another. It was like a loop 100, and it got canceled, and that was 2023.
So I do want to dive into that, but before we dive into that, I just want to, I think there's nothing like your first 100-mile race, and I really just wanted to dive into your experience at Daytona 100. Just tell me how that was.
Oh, it was probably the coolest thing I've ever experienced. It's different than I feel like when I did like the marathon, because there was a lot of people there, but like I didn't talk to anybody. Like when I got to the 100, like everyone was talking to everyone. It didn't matter like if you were like a seasoned runner or not. It's like something about the ultra community. Everyone was just like, hey, what's up? Like super like just everyone was like, it was like so crazy. People were like, so what gear do you have? What are you doing? Are you good? Is this your first time? And so that was just like overwhelming. Just it blew my mind after like during doing that. Super excited. So it was a point-to-point race. I had my wife and son, they were crewing, and then we had some people from Nathan, the team, come out and support me, and it was amazing. It was like the coolest like first 100 I'll remember forever, definitely.
Yeah, there's it's been 2 years since my first 100, and I still think it's like always going to be in my top 5 of like favorite performances and favorite finishes. And yeah, there's nothing like that feeling you get before your first 100. I mean, it's hard to describe to people who haven't done it, but like, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
just the kind of emotions you go through, the feelings you feel like at different points in the race. Was there any moment you remember during that race where things got really tough, or moments during that race that you felt like you weren't going to get it done?
Well, I ended up not finishing it. I ended up not, like, since it was my first, and I never ran that distance yet, and I was like, things I didn't realize I was doing. I ended up like running. There was a part of the run that was like almost 30 miles, and it was like a slanted road like this, and I ended up like running on, so getting up on the flat, I ran on that part the whole time, so like I was kind of like downwards, and then around like mile 50 something, I think it was like 55, my knee was so swollen, like I couldn't like bend it. So there was just like, I was like talking to to my wife and my son and to some people from Nathan, and they're like, there's physically, the speed I was going, I was not going to be able to get to the the next checkpoint in time. So I had to drop out at like mile 55 on that one. So I got to learn a lot from that race, for the first one. But I felt pretty good about it. I thought it was cool. I was like, man, for the first time, I was like, that was pretty fun, man. 55 miles. I was like, I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got your, that's one of the things, right? Is like, it's all perspective. Like, you got your PR in distance, and, you got out there and you made the right call because, this is something that you want to do for a long time. And I think one of the things that I really love about ultra running, is that there's, some people might not like this answer, but one of the things I like about ultra running is that you're not always guaranteed to finish no matter how you train or how you execute or whatever. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts about it, especially like the distances like 100 milers, because I've had my fair share of 100 DNFs too. Yeah,
Definitely.
it's for sure like and I've seen footage of, I had a friend who did the Daytona 100, and I was looking at the stories and I'm like, man, you guys are doing this all like, it looked like hard pavement most of the way.
It was pavement the whole way. Yeah, it was just the street.
Brutal.
Yeah,
brutal. That's like running 4 road marathons in a row, man. You can get me to do one.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience. I was like, oh, I guess I don't want to do that next time. Yeah, but it was fun though.
What was your biggest takeaway from that DNF that has kind of helped you become a better athlete and just a better runner and possibly even a better human?
I feel like just like not giving up and like being okay with like it not turning out the way you want it to be. Just like be okay with like what you got. Like I'm just grateful for the opportunity just to even be out there, from being so heavy to even be able to even go that distance, and to see and meet new people out there. So I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. So like I feel like no matter whatever race you do, it doesn't matter if you DNF or not, it's still like a blessing just to wake up that day to be able to do it.
Yeah, and that sort of circles back to what you were saying about how overwhelmed you were about how amazing the ultra running community is. I've seen it in all ultras, but especially in like 100-mile distances. It feels like the tone shifts from like racing against each other and even competing against yourself to like just everybody like working together, especially in the mid to back of the pack, to like get each other to the finish and like bring each other home. And there's just so much like camaraderie out there. Like one of my favorite things to always talk about is like how I'll do a road race and somebody will fall and nobody will pick them up. But you fall at an ultra marathon, like everybody's gathering around you. Like, do you need a salt tab? Like, do you need me to take you back to the last aid station? Like, it's just, there's just so many cool humans during that sport. And I had the same feelings of like being overwhelmed when I did my first ultra. So it's one, like I said in the green room, it's one of the things that keeps bringing me back. But going from that to that DNF, did you immediately know that you wanted to do another 100 miler? And which one did you sign up for afterwards, if you did?
Well, actually, after that, after I hurt my knee and stuff like that, I had time to ice it up, and ended up like 7 days later, getting Nathan all that, and getting footage and sending it off to him. I ended up doing another 100 and completing it like 7 days later. Yeah, like I'm very determined.
Which 100 was it?
So I'm a very determined. It was another solo 100 with some people. So it wasn't like a real like race. It was just a 100 we set up and I just ran it. So it was,
oh, for sure. So you've done
yeah,
2 solo 200s.
Yeah.
Now that I
people
think
come out and run with me, different distance depending on whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll invite whoever. Like, if you want to come out on a bike, if you want to do whatever, it doesn't matter. Come on out.
Yeah.
And people just
talk about that experience and like how do you set something up like that? Like an unsupported 100 miler and like the planning that goes in. Did you kind of plan it, or was it something that you sort of were like, I'm gonna get some of this together, but I'm also just gonna wing it, with the route?
Well, I had like a huge goal. Like I'll say, okay, I wanted to run a 100 before I turned 40, and I turned 40 in December. So I was like, okay, I really want to really get this. So I was like, I just put it on social media and everyone on Instagram that that reached out. I was like, people are just super awesome and like just very supportive. So people are like, yeah, just go for it. Like you might as well. And like when you like run around your area, you have like loops you can do. You have like 5-mile loops or 10-mile or whatever your different loops you have. And I would just take all my loops that I knew and did certain loops during certain times of the day, and that was like how I calculated out the whole race. And I just used my Garmin watch. Yeah. And then I had my wife and son crew me again. So they'd be out there, helping with drinks, helping with whatever I needed, so it was kind of cool. So my wife would stay up all night kind of dealing with me. So it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
So, before I sort of ask more about, before I sort of get into more about that 100, one of the things, we talked about was being like a role model for your son. And that's something we'll also get into. But I'm kind of curious, like, what he thinks about all this and like crewing ultras and like being around the ultra community and like you doing your 100 hours. Like, what does he think about ultra marathons and what you're doing?
He thinks it's really cool. Like, we don't really talk too much about it, but he like when we do, he thinks it's like cool where I've came from, and he shows like he's always like, man, he's like, it's cool that like I guess I'm not giving up. It's showing that like just because I fail, I just keep trying it no matter what until I get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So I think he's like he just thinks it's pretty neat. Because I mean he's so young, he's 15, so he's like he just thinks like, man, he's like, I can't believe you do this. It's wild, and it shows like it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't like I don't have to be like 20 years old or have like a runner's background. It's just going out there having fun. I think he's seeing me like having fun. Is really what it really comes down to.
Yeah, you nailed 2 of the things right on the head. Just like having fun and like never giving up. Just like going after the thing that you want to go after. And I'm sure like one of the things that's so cool about ultras is that like you don't really have to like talk about it too much when you go out there and you're like people see you keep pushing forward, like your son, your family, they keep seeing you move forward through like all these obstacles. You're being about it, like you're living through those actions. Like you're not saying never give up. You are like not giving up, Yeah. So, like fast forward to 2023 and you're preparing for another 100-mile race now.
Well, yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
Which
So yeah, so it'd be
one are you doing?
2022, 23. Yeah, so 23. Yeah, I actually ended up doing. I'm trying to think the date. So I'm pretty sure it was. I'm not sure if it was 2022 or 2023. I think it was 2023. I ended up doing the Keys 100.
The Keys one. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm I did that one, and then that's when after that is when I did 2023 that I did do the solo 100. That's when I had the other signed up for another race as well that got canceled. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I think that was kind of the stories I was watching and when
Yeah.
we got connected.
hmm
And you got another one coming in November, is that correct?
Yeah. It's like the first in this area. It's called the Tampa Bay 100. It's like the first urban 100 here in this area. So I'm like super excited. Like, so I'll be like one of the first running. So it's a very special, like, I feel like a race for me because it's like in my area. It's just gonna be cool. Like, I don't even know what to expect actually. Like this place
Yeah.
that I've never ran, and it's like really urban. Like it's like through to the city, and it ends out. It's just I don't even know the course. I'm not even sure about the course. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like super excited to run it though because they reached out and they're like, oh, we're starting this is gonna be the first of its kind. I was like, dude, I'm totally down to run it. So I'm pretty stoked for it.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like, I don't think, I mean, there are a lot of 100 milers popping up in the States, but I don't think I've ever heard of like a fully urban 100 miler like the one in Tampa Bay. So that sounds like a cool and like unique experience.
Yeah.
And I've done some inaugural races and like just the excitement and the nerves that comes with that is like a unique feeling,
Yeah.
especially knowing you're going to be among the first people to like test the course out, you know? There's something to be said about that, you know?
Yeah. I'm super excited. Yeah. So it's gonna be November 4th. Yeah. And it starts it's called Ybor City. It starts. So I'm pretty excited. Pretty stoked for
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked for you. How are you, how are you training from that? Based on what you've learned from your past, like ultra marathons and your experience, like what is your mindset going into the Tampa Bay 100, and how is your training similar or different from like your previous 100-mile races?
Well, this one, everything got actually switched around, which is kind of like, it's kind of a bummer, but like I'm cool with it. Like I mentioned earlier, I was playing this for like 7 years. I ended up getting after the Keys 100, and I ended up having like a severe like heat stroke and like blacking out and going into like a seizure.
Oh, wow.
It ended up after that, I ended up being like having all these weird food allergies. So I had to go get like tested. I ended up like having to go to the hospital, get EpiPens. It was like weird. It was like stuff I ate, like normally would eat. So I ended up getting tests and all that. So I'm allergic to the majority of the food I used to eat, like beans, oats, you know, like normal stuff. I would like coffee. I can't have like staples of like a vegan like protein part.
Wow.
Like, you know, common stuff I would eat. So I had to end up switching my diet completely. So now I eat like meat, fish, eggs, you know, completely different. So like now, like I'm just trying to get like my nutrition down. So that's the what I'm trying right now is get all that locked in for the run. That's like my main thing. And then I'm gonna start training, like really getting into it this week coming up.
Yeah, nutrition is definitely such a big thing for 100s. And, you know, I can attest to the fact that I was plant-based for a couple years, especially when I started out ultras. And at some point down the line, incorporated, you know, eggs back into my diet because I was massively vitamin B12 deficient and had some allergies and stuff with like some vegan staples. And like, it's crazy, you know, because not only are we evolving in the sport, but you know our bodies are always constantly evolving too. Like we even see it with the pros, you know, like you know with Courtney Dowalter, like you know DNFing hard rock when her normal staples didn't work and she had to go and reinvent the wheel. I mean, it's it's crazy how you know you'll get hammers like that in the sport and just in life, you know.
Yeah, like so like the aid station I can't technically eat from now because I don't know. So now I have to run with like an EpiPen. Like I can't have potatoes. Like so I normally grab some potato chips. Like if I need something salty, now I can't. It's like, so everything's like, so now I'm like, that's like my main thing is making sure I can get enough calories, and like what I can carry like on me, like to eat. Because the Tampa Bay 100, the aid station is actually 20 miles apart each
Wow.
station. So it's a pretty big gap. And then, of course, my wife's going to kind of go up ahead, but there's times where she's going to have to sleep and I'm going to have to rely maybe on aid station or something like that. So I'm going to have to be like, what's that? Or rely what's like, I can carry on my vest pretty much also. So hopefully there'll be stuff there I'm going to like look at, like, can I eat that? But so definitely I'm going to be looking for stuff to carry on me that like can give me enough fuel, to get me kind of to the next, at least to the next station or to wherever my crew's going to be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's such a big thing to like really think about, especially now that you're having like meat, egg, and fish as your primary diet. But like it's just another puzzle to figure out. And one of the cool things about ultras is that, in my opinion, it teaches us how to handle a lot of things that come at us in life. Just like problem solving and like figuring it out and finding a way to keep moving forward. And I'm totally sure you will, man. So, before we get into the rapid fire, I wanted to kind of just open the floor to ask you to give advice to like beginners getting into the sport or in any endurance sport. Like, what advice would you give somebody who maybe even comes from a similar background like yours, or somebody who is, nervous to kind of get into endurance sports? Like, what advice would you give them?
I guess really not to overthink it, to be honest. It's just like I always say, like if you get tired, you can just start walking. So even if you're out there and you think, oh, I could never probably run 5 miles or 10 miles or 20 miles. In reality, I feel like if you're not like, if there's not physically something wrong with you, like where you're like maybe in a wheelchair or something like that, I feel like everyone's body pretty much adapts to whatever we do as like a consistent thing. And like the main thing is like just believing in that you can, if something that you want, that you can do it. Like I always told myself, I said, this is when I look at myself and I wanted it to be something different. I just told myself I'm gonna write myself a different story. Like I don't have to be who I was. So I was just like, okay, I want to lose this weight, or I want to be able to run. I just was in my mind, I told myself to shut up and I just would run. And if I got tired, I would stop running and just walk. If I had to walk 2 miles, I just walked it. But I would give myself little goals. Like I wouldn't go like, oh, I'm going to run 5 miles and now I'm going to run 50. I would just be like, I would add like a mile or half a mile and I just kept adding it every week. And if I could run that distance, I wouldn't go backwards. I would always just keep adding more. So I would have like my one long run a week and I would make sure to add more each time. So, I just made it simple like that. I didn't overthink it. Like I didn't try to like beat anybody else. I just tried to beat myself every time.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like everybody's got their own story and you just gotta like do you and like be yourself. And one of the things you said also was something similar to somebody else said this on the show. My friend Joe he's an ultra runner. He had an Adderall addiction, and one of the things he said, one of his mantras is where you are is not where you're always going to be. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, because we've all been in these dark places and like dark holes, and you think you're never gonna like things are never gonna change, but like thanks for bringing that up, because you are a testament to that yourself, that like where you were is not where you're always gonna be.
Definitely, I agree, man.
So before we let you go, Shawn, we're gonna get into the rapid fire section of the show. So I think I'm just going to jump right into it. Shawn, are you ready for the rapid fire?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. So we already asked about pineapple on pizza. Your team which is awesome. So when you go out on a run, do you listen to music, podcasts, or nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. I love that. red candy corn. Is it a real candy?
Yes.
Or so are you yay or nay on it?
I like it.
Oh man. That's a
And I
rough
do
one
like
for me.
using it, but I the only reason I don't wear it is just like it always messes up and it irritates me. You know, like something will break on it, and I'm like, ah. That's the only reason I don't use it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I mean, I listen to nothing at all too now on all my runs, so it's awesome, you know. Peeps, yay or nay?
No.
Nay, I love that. I don't think Adina in the comments there will like that. She sent me a stale peep earlier because she's a stale peep fan. It's the first time, yeah, it's the first time that somebody has sent actual food to us and like community mail from Run Try Bike, so I was not expecting a stale peep, but she also sent me a band that it's in reverse, but it says progress, not perfection.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a refocus band. I'm gonna wear these on all my ultras now, my hundreds and everything. So super grateful for that. And she's in the comments right now saying no for the peeps, you know. All right, next question. Red velvet. Is it a real flavor or is it chocolate with red food dye?
That's a hard one, man. I don't know. I feel like it's chocolate with red food dye. Does it really taste like anything? I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. I think it's
it
chocolate with red food dye, man. I'm totally
It's a
totally agree
gimmick.
with that.
It's a gimmick.
Are you a cake or a pie person?
Pie person. I had pie for my birthday.
What kind of pie?
Any fruit pie. I like apple.
Oh man, that sounds good right now. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like, we really appreciate your time, and this is a really great conversation. And you know, you're welcome back anytime. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you do on Tampa Bay, and just, you know, I'm sure we'll be following each other's journeys as well because we follow each other.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'll have to get back on because I know I left out like a ton of stuff. My mind is blank when questions come at me. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome back anytime, and I think we definitely love to have you back on the show after Tampa Bay 100 to talk about your experience, because what you're doing is like super unique, and I'm excited to hear about the journey of the Urban 100, man.
I really appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you, man, and have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.